I think so many teams tend to be starting from scratch every time because building templates in an email design system is a lot of upfront work. A lot of email marketers are essentially a team of one. So a lot of times they're not afforded that time to be thoughtful about their email design systems or even templates. Now, having that email design system and template will allow you to do that, but it's always getting the time and resources to get it done, right? So I think that's why it's so hard. So in building that system, I would say bring other people along the way with you. If you have designers available to you who are, say, working on website stuff or digital design, talk to them first. See what they're doing so that you can align with them.
Hi, Megan. It's great to have you with us today. Welcome back to our Marketing Insider series, where marketing complexity gets simplified by the experts who solved it. We focus on practitioners building systems that actually scale and defining what excellence looks like in their field. Today, I'm really excited to have Megan Boshuyzen with us. She's an award-winning senior email developer, educator, and honestly, when it comes to design systems, accessibility, and interactive emails, she knows her stuff. What I love about Megan is that she got this perfect mix of design, development, strategy, all in as one package. She's the kind of person who helps teams actually get things done faster, cut through the chaos, and build emails that don't just look pretty, but they actually work. So today we are diving into some real talk about email workflows that are driving you crazy. So those annoying dark mode issues, I hope many of you have, you can relate to that keep popping up, and how to navigate this whole new world where AI and visual editors are changing everything, just about everything. If you have been struggling with any of this email stuff, and let's be honest, who hasn't, right? You have been going to want to stick around for this one. Yes, so Megan, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to dive in.
Thank you for having me, and that intro was so nice. Thank you. I love talking about email development, so I'm super excited to be here.
Likewise, Megan. Pleasure hosting you. All right, let's jump into something I know is, as I said, is driving people absolutely crazy. Why do so many email teams keep starting from scratch with every single campaign, Megan? I mean, think about it, right? You've got marketers who are supposed to be focusing on crafting messages, creatives, but instead they are spending half their time wrestling with padding issues, trying to breathe life into some ancient template that has been probably copy-pasted millions of times, right? You have actually cracked this code. You have built full design systems that works across different brands, different campaigns, the whole 9 yards, right? So here is what I really want to know. Can you walk us through what actually goes into building one of these strong, reusable email systems? And more importantly, what are the things teams absolutely need to get right from day one if they don't want to end up in this endless cycles of starting over? Over to you.
Yeah, so I guess I will start with, I think so many teams tend to be starting from scratch every time because building templates in an email design system is a lot of upfront work. And as we know, a lot of email teams are extremely small, maybe one or two people. A lot of email marketers are essentially a team of one. So a lot of times they're not afforded that time to be thoughtful about their email design systems or even templates get up and going, because email is seen as such a quick turnaround type industry. So say you work in e-commerce and you want to get something out, you got to turn it around really fast, right? Now, having that email design system and template will allow you to do that, but it's always getting the time and resources to get it done, right? So I think that's why it's so hard. And I've been that email person of one, really wanting an email design system and just not having the time to do it. So I'm really lucky that in positions of the past, my most recent past position, that I was afforded the time. I was on a 2-person email team with designers to work with. So I was afforded the time and the space to build an email design system. So in building that system, I would say bring other people along the way with you. If you have designers available to you who are, say, working on website stuff or digital design, talk to them first. See what they're
Right.
doing so that you can align with them. So for me, it was
Right.
aligning to an 8-pixel grid, essentially, and matching it close as possible to what's being done elsewhere. Now, with email, you do have to have other things to take into consideration, like fallback typefaces, colors, how is it going to react in dark mode? You can control that better on web than email and all those things. So you have to do an audit, start thinking about like what that spacing looks like, what your colors look like, what are your layouts? Do you mostly work with one column templates, hero image text button? Do you need a multiple columns? How many columns do you need? Are you going up to 4? Do you do no more than 3? These are all different things to take into consideration. There's also, are you working in different languages? That's something I've dealt with. Are you dealing with multiple brands, and are you trying to keep them all on the same code base, which does make things a lot easier if you're working with a lot of brands. Are the way the emails sound different? So maybe there are elements that you use in one brand, but not the other. So it's a lot of upfront work before you even get to the coding part, which then once you get all that into consideration, you get to coding. Now you have to think about how does everything fit together, and how can you get it all to fit together in ways that, do you want it all to be interchangeable? Do you only want certain modules to go into other ones? So there's just a lot, there's so much to take into consideration. You know, what does
Right.
your hero image look and act versus an image that maybe doesn't go the full width and is in a smaller column? It's all things that I've had to deal with, and it fundamentally changes the way you develop emails. Like it blows my mind how much differently I think about email development now, that I've had to think in terms of larger systems instead of each individual build.
Okay.
So,
Right.
and now I
Got
can
it.
build an email in less than 10 minutes if I need to. So it's like
Got
that
it.
upfront work has a lot of payoff later to rapidly send out emails that you know are going to look good, that are going to QA fine, that are accessible because you've done all that upfront work.
True. That's very true, and I love that approach. You know, speaking of things that make developers want to pull their hair out, let's talk about great Figma to inbox mystery, because we have all been right. We have all been right? So the design looks absolutely stunning in Figma. You know, everyone is having high five. The clients loves it. Everything is perfect when we are looking at it into the Figma as a design. Then you hand it off to the development, and somehow the layout takes forever to build. And even worse, it ends up looking like it went through a blender by the time it hits someone's inbox. Uh, Now, Megan, so you have felt both sides of this pain, right, as a designer and developer. So here is what I'm really curious to know. What's a simple workflow or a hands-off approach you have actually seen work in real world? That's something that keeps design very clean, stays consistent, and doesn't make developer question their life's choices when it's time to build.
So I think a lot of this is having a good partnership with your design team. And
Right.
your design team should have a little bit of education of what's possible in email and what's not, and of progressive enhancements. So a lot of times where I'll see people get tripped up is your fonts and your rounded corners are pretty much the two big ones that I see. So people get caught up on brand fonts always having to show. You will never get brand fonts to show everywhere unless you're using all image emails, which is something I absolutely do not recommend people doing. You should keep as much in live text as possible for accessibility purposes. And you can end up with a nicely designed email using fallback fonts. So it's working with your design team, because they can be great partners in this and figuring out a lovely fallback font that will closely match your brand font. And then it's changing your thinking a little bit to knowing that some things are just progressive enhancements. So, like, in my opinion, rounded corners on a button are progressive enhancements because you will not get rounded corners in code for, say, Outlook. In order to do that, you have to use VML. VML CTAs are not accessible. It requires you to use two different URLs, two blocks of code. It can't be read by your screen reader. So some of it is just that education and knowing that there are certain things that you can do in some places and not in others, and letting go of the idea of pixel perfection. There is no such thing in pixel perfection in email. It is a lie. But you can get really close and you can give everybody a really good experience. And that's what's most important, is that people can click on your email. So if they're able to take the action, your email works. And that is the most
Right.
important thing.
That makes total sense, Megan. All right, let's tackle the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about until it's too late. Accessibility. Right?
Yes.
We all know how the story goes, right? Accessibility gets pushed down to the priority list again and again, and we will get it to. I mean, we always hear people saying like, we will get it to the next sprint. Then it becomes well handled in the next quarter maybe, and then suddenly, bam! Either a regulation smacks you in the face, or worse, you realize your beautifully crafted email is basically speaking gibberish to someone using a screen reader. Right? Now, Megan, you have been deep in the accessibility trenches, right? Especially with all these European accessibility acts, stuffs like that. That's got everyone scrambling. So here is my question around this one, okay? For all the teams out there who are probably sweating a little right now, what's the easiest, most painless way to start making their emails actually inclusive? Like if they could only do three things tomorrow, what would move that needle most?
Yeah, so before I get that answer, I just want to say when building emails and accessible emails, I always say you
Right,
should bake it into what I refer to as your email culture. So,
right.
what do you want your emails to accomplish? You want them to convert. So, in order for them to convert, you need to support the widest possible amount of people. So, by leaving accessibility to the next quarter, next year, or whatever, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're eroding your brand trust, and you're not supporting the largest amount of people possible. And we know, depending on your source, 25% to 28% of people, email users worldwide, have some sort of disability, whether permanent, temporary, you'll never know that. So you want to make sure you're supporting those people at all times. So with that said, the easiest things that you can do to support accessible emails is, one, get rid of your all image emails. Your images should enhance your message, not be your message. So it should still work without the images. Two, make sure your text is at least 16 pixels in your size. Anything lower than that can start becoming hard to read. If depending on your audience, like if you know your audience maybe have some vision impairment, or an older audience, you can even bump that text up more. In a previous nonprofit job we had emails that targeted grandparents. So I actually had that body text up at 21 pixels to support that group of people. So it's totally okay to do something like that. Three, check your color contrast. It's really easy to look at color contrast, especially on your CTAs where you want people to click and feel like you have enough contrast. And sometimes our eyes lie to us. So for me, color is not an issue. And I've run into this in the past before, actually, where I have felt like the contrast was really good. And then I find out by accessibility standards, which are a little stricter, like using the WCAG color contrast checker, that the colors were not actually accessible. And I have found out after the fact that people who were colorblind had trouble reading my email, which is something you don't want. And we know that color blindness is pretty prevalent, especially in men. So we want to make sure that those people can read our email. So I feel like color contrast is one that a lot of people just kind of miss. So definitely triple check those colors to make sure that they work.
Really love how practical that is, Megan. Thanks for that tips. Okay, let's dive into another one of those looks perfect but until it doesn't scenarios, right? Oh boy, that's none other than the dark mode, right? You spend all this time crafting the perfect emails. Colors are on point, contrast is beautiful, everything is looking like a masterpiece. Then someone opens it on like a maybe like an Apple Mail client or an Outlook with dark mode turned on it, and it's like your email got hit by some kind of design apocalypse. The whole vibe just collapses, right? I remember you actually sharing some great examples of how dark mode can totally change how an email looks like, right? And sometimes not in a very good way. So tell us, what are some practical tips or coding habits that teams can adopt to avoid these kind of embarrassing dark mode fails?
A little bit of it is letting go that, dark mode, especially in Gmail, is going to do what it's going to do. But the first thing you want to do is get your media query up and running in your code. There's the color prefers dark, or color scheme prefers dark. You can find the snippet easily online, and you can put all your dark mode styles
Right.
in there, and Apple will very easily read those. For Outlook, there are a couple of things that you can do to control it a little bit, especially in Outlook web. You get a little bit more control there. You can use style background colors and just like regular style colors to start controlling things a little bit. If you go to how to target, I think it's how to target.email, you can look up how to target different email clients and you'll find everything you need there, like the specifics on how to do it. But you could target Outlook web a little bit that way. You can target Outlook desktops if it supports dark mode in a couple of ways, using VML and not using VML. It's a little tricky and mathematical, and
Right.
there are articles out there on how to do that. Nicole Merlin has a really great article that I often follow when trying to tweak dark mode. Go take a look at that. In Gmail, sometimes, not all the time, you can control your color and your backgrounds if you need to in Gmail dark mode using color blend modes. There's a great article by Remy Parmentier on how to do that. He has a lot of really great stuff that I often look at. It's usually like you have two divs, and one is a color blend mode, I believe, of difference, and then I don't remember what the second one is, and like math things happen, so it turns the color one way, then turns it the other way to get the color you actually want. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So we can only really control it the best that we can. Your best looking dark mode email is going to be on Apple devices, which luckily is very popular for people to use. But so is Gmail in dark mode. So you kind of have to deal with both and take them as they come.
Sure, sure. I bet that would save so many headaches, Megan.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Now let's talk a little bit about the budget and quality, right? You have been in those situations running high output email programs at both non-profits and tech companies, right? If I'm right. So you know what it's like when the pressure's on and everyone is looking at you like, make magic happen with the shoestring budget. So what are some ways teams can actually scale up their email game without failing into some soul-crushing copy paste and hope for the best trap? Like, what are some shortcuts that do not sacrifice on quality?
So this is where I say having an email design system, or at the least templates, are going to be your best friend.
Right.
Because you have everything all set for you. You can just throw it all together and it's ready to send out. Having in your like brand book, having a section dedicated to email is always a really good idea, because then you can always fall back onto the brand book and the branding and what you're supposed to do. So having those guidelines in place ahead of time will allow you to move faster later because those decisions are already made for you. And you know exactly what
Right.
you need to do to get moving.
Love how you think about that efficiency. That's so clever. Speaking of doing more with what you have got, let's talk about interactive emails because there is this always a pressure, right? Can we make our emails more dynamic and more engaging, maybe more fun? And all they can think of is an interactive email. But then reality hits, right? AMP seems like a rocket science all of a sudden, and the aspirations goes down, and your ESP is being difficult, and everyone starts backing away slowly. And they used to start to think like maybe we'll just stick to the regular emails. So now I know you have been doing some really clever stuff, and I mean really clever, using just basic things like checkboxes, CSS, and good old personalization. Can you share maybe one or two simple examples that people watching could actually try today? Something that will make their email more interactive without them needing to do a PhD, maybe.
Yeah, interactive email is so tricky because I feel like as developers are always like, interactive
Yeah.
email is the way to go. That's what we need to do. But for the most interactivity, it's mostly Apple that supports it. So you need to look at your audience to see where they are because if you're a B2B business or a SaaS business and you're mostly sending emails to Outlook, then going super interactive is probably not your best bet. Now, you can do a little bit in Outlook using checkboxes, which can be kind of fun. I highly recommend checking out some of the work that Action Rocket has done for the BBC. They've done some
Oh,
really cool interactive emails for them. They did some for the BBC, Bluey, a bunch of like really
okay.
fun brands. Those emails are really fun to look at for interactivity. But if you want a really low lift, look at your hover states for email. You'll mostly just see it on desktop, but that's okay. Sometimes when you tap on a button on mobile, you'll see the action happen then. But you can do fun things with hover states and just start there. You can do some fun things with input switching, so with radios. So you can do like a tab type situation where then you're showing new information based on where somebody taps or clicks. Those are always really fun. The other way to go is how much data do you have access to about your users? Can you start personalizing information that way? One fun email we did, and it wasn't a highly designed email, but it was done with AMP. It's the only time I've done an AMP email, is we sent out a quiz. And then depending on how you responded to each question would queue up the next one based on the response. And then in the end, it would serve you a certain landing page. And it was like we were doing like your email persona. So whether you are a developer or marketer or maybe a little bit of both, and then we served you up a different landing page depending on your responses. So like things like that can be a really fun way to start getting personalized. We've also sent out emails after webinars. And if somebody asked a question, you can get all that information after a webinar. And depending on your workload and the time, we actually loaded up resources for those people. And then we dynamically inserted articles to send those people to as resources for after the webinar. So there are a lot of different things that you can do with just data
Right.
without having to get super interactive and code heavy to make things special for your users.
Right, right. That's much simpler than I thought. So that next question is around deliverability, Megan. So here's what always happens. Email performance starts tanking and everyone immediately starts pointing fingers at the subject line or the content. Maybe we are becoming too salesy, maybe we should do an A/B testing or try a different CTAs. But what most people completely miss is that sometimes it's the code itself that's quietly sabotaging everything. Megan, you have talked about this in your deliverability sessions, and it's such an eye opener because most people have no idea this is even a thing, right? So, what are some of those sneaky mistakes that developers or marketers or unknowingly making that just triggers spam filters left and right. And more importantly, how they can avoid turning their beautifully crafted emails into a digital poison.
Yeah, so when it comes to email code, for deliverability, the biggest thing is to make sure it all validates and that there are no errors in there. Because if you're sending out broken emails, your users are less likely to open them, which then the filters do their thing and they think that the user's not interested in your email and they start sending it to spam. Now, if your code is checking out okay and you're hitting up spam, that's where I would start looking at other things. Where are the layouts converting? Are you sending content that they expect? So does your subject line match your content? If your subject line says one thing and then it's like a bait and switch and you open it up and it's something else, then that could, annoy your users and then they start sending you the spam. So I am by far not a deliverability expert. It's very multifaceted. And
Right.
you need to look at a lot of factors to get your deliverability in line. But in my opinion, as long as you're not spamming people and you're getting your correct permissions, sending people what they want, then you really shouldn't be seeing many deliverability issues. If you are, there is something else going on. You just need to holistically look at your whole email program.
Right. Got it. Moving to the next question. On one side, you've got this visual editors that are supposed to make life easier, but they are so limiting you. Like you feel like you are trying to paint a masterpiece with just crayons, right? On the other side, that is this custom coded thing which gives you all the control in the world. But people start to think that who has the time for that when you are cranking out emails every single day. And then that is the third question, custom email development, which sounds like amazing until you see some of the price tags on these services and everyone start to having the budget panic attacks. So here's what cool, Megan. You just spent the last year doing something really interesting. You basically took your entire system and adapted it into a parcels visual editor, if I'm right.
Yep.
Right? That's simply like an email system surgery. So what should teams know about building something that's actually flexible, even when their tools are fighting every step of the way? How do you work with the limitations instead of constantly battling against them?
So the nice thing with going the route of something like Parcel and their visual editor is that you have control of the experience from beginning to end. So I can do essentially whatever I want in there and I have no limitations. It was interesting taking my email design system from just doing it all in code and doing it for a visual editor, because it made me start thinking about design systems even in a new way that I never thought I'd think about them. And I understand a little bit more how tough it is for these visual editors from various ESPs to design them in a way that can work for literally anyone. And I see why. So a lot of times with these visual editors and ESPs, you end up with the very bloated code. Right. And I see why it's very easy for that code to bloat up really fast, because you have to take so much into account and you never know how somebody is gonna build an email. So it's thinking about visually how all the pieces fit together. Like I had to change how my email design system worked and how the modules fit together as soon as I started making it visual. So how do you work with the limitations? I'm sure it varies based on the editor and the ESP you're using, or whether you're using a standalone, whether you're in a Parcel or a Be Free, or you're using the visual editor in the MailJet or MailChimp or, OmniSend, Klaviyo, any of these other big ESPs. I do think it's possible to design beautiful emails with the drag and drop editors. You do run into the risk of those emails cutting off in Gmail because Gmail has the 102 kilobyte limit. That does not include images. A lot of people get confused about that. That is just your code weight. So what will happen is that you might have a bunch of articles and it doesn't look like it visually, it doesn't look like it's a lot, but you might have the code just bloating up for every paragraph you have to get all the styles in there because we have to inline a lot of that CSS or to get the buttons to work. So then suddenly you have your email cutting off in Gmail and then you can't get to the unsubscribe link, which then can contribute to those deliverability issues we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. So a lot of it is knowing your tool and just how to get around things. Or instead of using, your ESP editor, you go and use a visual editor, like you have somebody make something for you in Parcel. And Parcel actually has a lot of standard components that you can just use out of the box. You don't have to, code a bunch of custom stuff.
Right.
You can get started in there right away. Or you go to another visual email builder where maybe that code is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little less bloated.
Less bloated.
Yeah,
Lean.
maybe a little bit more accessibility focused. That's
Yeah.
another thing with the visual editors. They often miss key things for accessibility in the code, like language attributes and things like that. And that's stuff you can't control if you're working
Right.
with a drag and drop editor. That you can control with, say, a custom visual editor like in Parcel or just custom coding things. You can, control all that.
Right.
You lose a lot of that code control with the drag and drop editor.
Right. I have a follow-up question
Yeah.
for that, Megan. Is there a simple rule of thumb? Let's say, for example, if the stakes are really low, we can go with maybe using a DIY builders. If the stakes are high, we should go with custom email development. If the stakes are high and you have really good people working in the code and almost can guarantee 900% that the code will not break, then we can go into custom development. Is there any simple rule like that you can tell to people?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think most like smaller, medium-sized businesses probably don't need an email developer.
Right.
The drag and drop editors are probably good enough. I think it'll be, going forward, I really think it'll be a lot of the larger enterprise businesses that will
Right.
benefit from email developers because they're the ones who are going to be in things like Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which get
Right.
very complicated, very fast, data heavy. You're going to want someone in there who understands code and templating languages and can work and manipulate the data in the exact way that you need them to instead of trying to rely on a third party to do it for you.
Got it, Megan. Totally aligned. Okay, I want to switch gears here and talk a little about something that drives me a little crazy, how people think about email developers, right? So there is still this weird perception in a way, too many organizations that email developers are just tactical button droppers. Like, oh, the email dev, yeah, they fix rendering bugs and drop in CTAs when we need them. It's like they think you are some kind of email mechanic instead of being a strategic partner, right? I'm not trying to undermine them, but there are still people who thinks it that way. But the way you approach development, Megan, it's deeply strategic, I believe. You are thinking about user experience, you are thinking about business goals, technical architecture, the whole ecosystem, right? You're just not making things look pretty. You are making them work better for everyone, for the executives, for the marketing directors, for the people, the end consumers who still don't get it, right? How they should be thinking about the role of a senior email developer on a high-performing team. And I would also like to know what are they missing when they treat this as just a tactical function.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think email developers can be severely, what's the word I'm looking for?
Undervalued?
Undervalued. Yeah, like
underrated?
like undervalued. I also think it's a little bit on the email developers to show some curiosity because you'll have
Right.
email developers who come in and they're like, I just deal in the code and that's all I do. But email developers, especially as AI gets more powerful and can do a lot of like basic coding work, if you can learn about design and learn about strategy, and then what you can do is look at the code, you already have the knowledge
Yeah.
of how that email is going to render in different clients, then you can come in as a strategic partner to then start talking about design and strategy. You can start giving suggestions on how to A/B test. Or if somebody comes to you with the design, you can say, hey, I don't think this will work because of XYZ reasons. We should do this instead because the code will render this way or that way. So I mean, as we know with me, I do dev design. I can do a lot of it. And I think that's what's made me a really good developer is that
Right.
I came into email development with the design chops already in place and a lot of the strategy already in place. So if you're someone coming in with the technical skills already in place, how can you learn more about design? How can you learn more about strategy? Because that will just make you that much better of a developer and more essential to your team to be able to be that strategic partner to send out good emails, because then everyone on the team is running in the same direction. And I have found the
Right.
best teams are the ones that are all running together in the same direction and can trust each other to understand each other's expertise to work together to put out the best product.
Right. Exactly. It's so much more strategic than people realize.
Yeah.
Totally agree on that. Yeah. And I have a last question, and that's about AI.
Yeah.
And yeah. So and speaking of the future, I'm hearing it everywhere that are we going to be replaced, right? Developers are wondering if they will be obsolete. Even life cycle marketers are questioning their value, and honestly, everyone is a little freaked out
Yeah.
about yeah where they fit into this new world. You have been navigating the shift in real time, actually sharing your processes publicly, which is so valuable. You are not hiding these challenges, you are adapting with them. And what's your honest take on how email roles are evolving, Megan? And what advice do you have for marketers and developers who want to stay not just relevant but actually valuable in this fast changing AI world?
Yeah, AI is nuts, and I've been a little bit more hesitant to dive in headfirst into AI for a lot of reasons. I've
Right.
I've played with it with email development. It's definitely not there yet from a technical perspective to totally replace email developers unless you prompt it with exactly everything you need. It's going to miss things, especially on the accessibility front. So in my opinion, I always go back to the email design system. In my opinion, you're better off crafting an email design system that works for you and your brand than
Right.
faffing around in AI trying to get it to give you what you need. And email development is so niche and is such a
Yeah.
specific skill set that
Totally.
oftentimes AI will give you what you need for web. It's
Yeah.
great for code for web and JavaScript and all that. It is not great for email development because it doesn't know all of the little quirks of it. So if you're suddenly thrown into email development, don't know anything about it, and you're going to AI asking it to give you email code, it's not going to be correct. And it's not going to be everything you need. Now, I know there are ways that people are starting to like use AI a little bit to say, take styles from Figma, put it in their code for them. I actually think that's a pretty cool way to use AI because then you already have your email design system. Say there's a brand change that gets made for you. You don't have to waste the 30 seconds
Yeah.
to go in and do it. So like things like that is kind of neat. I know there's a lot of AI copy generators coming out, and I could see that being useful to like small business. Like I think that's where it's going to
Right.
affect things most because small businesses are usually like a 1-2 person operation. They need the help, right? They're not
Right.
hiring someone like me to make emails
Yeah.
for them. I will be way too expensive. So like these little bits of AI can help them get going. And like I said before, with developers being needed on the enterprise level, that's where we can shine, where we start diving into the deep technical stuff to be the strategic partner there so that we can show ROI, the personalized emails, the deep data. Like, I think that's where we're going to shine the most, where AI may not necessarily be able to touch because they're not humans. My other thing about AI is that it's, garbage in, garbage out. So it depends on the information being put in there.
Right. Yeah.
We've already seen some of these AI LLMs spit out some pretty insane things that are just not great for the world. So I do think we're at a precipice where, as a society, we need to decide how this is going to affect us. So algorithms and LLMs always reflect the larger societal culture. So we just need to think about what's being put in there and what's being spit out back at us and how is it useful. So I always just say, AI's here. See how you can use it.
Right.
But just be careful about those implications and what it means. So like transforming data, great. I transformed a bunch of data into JSON for me and it was phenomenal because it saved me so much time. But am I going to go to it for a whole big thing of code or for general information? Not yet. It's not giving me what I need. So just find your uses and see how it helps and ignore the rest is my opinion. Other people disagree with me. That's fine, but that's my opinion.
That's a very positive way to end this, right, Megan? And I'm totally agreeing with that on many aspects as well. Even I for a sake, like I've tried to fix some things out of Chat GPT, which I'm trying to fix an email with. That's just a fun project after all, but I couldn't succeed. After multiple attempts of prompting, it's not giving me the result I wanted. So yeah. So I think, Megan, I have to say just wow, like the depth you brought to every single one of these questions is exactly why we wanted you to be on the show. You didn't just give us the surface level tips or a generic advice. You took us behind the curtain and showed us how someone really knows their craft, thinking about these problems from design systems that actually work in real world to navigating this impossible ESP limitations to completely reframing how leadership think about email developers, right? Basically, you have given our the audience a masterclass today, and I love how you made even the most technical stuff feel very actionable and very accessible, I would say. And what really strikes me is like how you see the big picture. You're not solving today's problem. You are thinking 3 steps ahead already about where the industry is going and how professionals can evolve with it, right? That kind of strategic thinking is exactly what separates, I believe, true expert from everyone else. So all I have to say is that, so thank you so much for sharing not just your knowledge, but your perspective and your honest take on so many things and your experience so generously with our community. This has been absolutely invaluable for us, Megan. And so thank you so much. Is there anything else to say, Megan, from your side?
Well, thank you for having me on. This was super fun. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free, shoot me a message. Happy to answer questions and whatnot. I love email development and helping folks. So, reach out. Let's be friends.
Sure thing, Megan. For everyone watching, if you want to dive deeper into Megan's work, follow her insights, or see more of those brilliant examples she mentioned in this video, don't forget to subscribe and follow Megan. For more conversations like this, please subscribe this channel where we go beyond the surface with people who are actually shaping the future of marketing. And thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next Marketing Insider series. Thank you so much.